Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. We got a couple of different guests this week. We got Roger from True Aquaponics. Want to say hi, Roger?
Hey, 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 how's everybody doing?
We
Hey,
also have Ben from True Terpenes, which is going to be awesome. So we got the true guys in the house,
Yeah, I just caught that for the first time actually, and I think that's really cool. Good lineup. True cannabis episode is what you could call this.
right? True Aquaponics and True Terpenes. We got the true guys in the house. So I thought it was kind of funny to have you guys on the show tonight. um, So it's been a little while since we had Roger on the show. Thanks again for coming on. Why don't you tell everyone what you've been up to? I know you got a bunch of newer stuff coming online. You guys have grown quite a bit since the last time you've been on the show. Want to bring people up to date a little bit?
Yeah, since the last time I was on the show, we've probably doubled in size as far as our output, helping folks. That funny thing you see on my picture that I'm holding in my hands is actually a water heater for fish tanks to keep aquaponic systems warm, and we have made some huge advances lately. That particular one is a 1650 watt unit, which is kind of small, but we've added on a 2750 watt unit and a 5500 watt unit recently, and all of them are out there working in the real world, and it's fantastic. And on top of that, the nutrients, that 3 week dose that we came up with about a year and a half ago or so has just exploded on the market. People are loving it. Beyond that, individual minerals that folks need, we got all that, and we're just getting land blasted. I mean, daily, I can almost do my real job, or almost not do my real job, due to all the shipments going out. I'm gonna have to hire people. It's unbelievable.
that's cool, man. I know I've seen you post a lot about those water heaters, and I've seen a lot of people have purchased them and been really happy with them. And you even, I think if I remember right, you guys changed the design a little bit to make it a little bit better. Not maybe a few months ago or so. Am I remembering that right?
The actual change in design happened about right at 2 years ago,
Oh,
but
oh, maybe
it
not.
well,
Sorry.
it's because we went from a mechanical thermostat to a digital thermostat. That was the big design change.
Cool.
Now, what we're doing right now, we can actually program the computer that we use for a specific needs, and they can still adjust their temperatures. But if they want to keep their water at 70 or 75 or 65, depending on the fish and the plants they're growing, or even at 80, if their system can handle that, we can program that in. They can dial it in to exactly what they want, and when it gets there, it shuts off, and it waits till it gets to a certain temperature to cut back on. It's working fantastically for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's great. I see a lot of really good feedback on it before, and I've checked it out for myself before too. I haven't quite had the need to do it yet, but I've seen a lot of really great feedback on it. And I think that I thought I remember something about changing the design to cut down on solids buildup around the core, but maybe that might have been a different one. I'm just mistaken. So, but anyway, I do know that I've seen that one on True Aquaponics quite a bit, and you guys have posted links and stuff to it before, and it definitely seems like a lot more efficient than just like a regular fish tank heater, that you might buy for an aquarium. You want to like talk about a little bit of the difference in efficiency between those two, or?
Just to go back to the change you're talking about, you're absolutely right. That was just a couple of months ago. We used to build a cover for the heater element, and it was building up solids inside the feedback we were getting, and what we were seeing in our own tank. We were getting solids building up on the heater element, so you had to clean it constantly. And we've done away with it. In our larger units, the heater element won't work anyway because the design of the heater element won't allow it. So it's a good thing all around just to get rid of it. It's a little less money we have to charge because we're not building them, and it's also a little less weight for shipping, and it does a better job without it.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. That's what I thought. I thought maybe I was mistaken for another one, but yeah, that's great. And I like that you guys can share that kind of information, and you put it out there. And we had an experience with a lighting company that didn't quite divulge information that we thought was pertinent to their customers. I know Fish had documented it pretty well, and they could have pretty easily shared that information, just like you did, and even if it's just through social media in any way. So that's why that caught my attention, was it just illustrated to me how easily they could have dealt with it just by saying, hey, you know what, guys, this works a lot better. We're switching over to this. You guys should do it too. Here's what you need to do. And I thought that was really cool. So just wanted to give you your kudos there.
Well, the big thing is some people actually build these themselves, whether they use the mechanical or computerized. And if we can help those folks that are building their own to understand that, hey, don't use this or don't do that or don't do this, it's good for them. It's good for us. It helps all the way around. And that's the big thing.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You had another question after that, and I don't remember what it was. If you could restate it right quick, I'll go to it.
Yeah, just on that last point, just have to shout out respect. Just need to say that.
All right, thanks, Tommy. And yeah, I did have another question, and I don't remember what it was either. So
Roger actually does a good job of answering customer questions on his Facebook group.
yeah.
And unlike a lot of the other people out there that sell stuff, actually does a really good job of customer interaction. It's one of the reasons why I went out, reached out to him to help him a little bit when he was getting started. So.
Hey, he's got a lot of cool things, I think, for beginners too. I always send them over there to your store to take a look at it, because I feel like you have some sort of pre-made packages put together. Do you want to talk about those a little bit to make it a little bit easier for the newbies to manage their systems?
Absolutely, and we haven't honed these into the cannabis market because we really need to work with you guys on that, see what we need to provide in a pretty muchly one fits all, which one fits all is not a good thing, but it gets close. And with aquaponics growing vegetables and leafy greens and what have you, we can do it pretty close and make it work for everybody. But for especially one item, we need to really try to figure out how to hone in on that. But for everybody else, we've already got it done. We've had it done for years, and a lot of people are enjoying the benefits of it. A lot of people are signing up for subscriptions to where every 3 weeks it comes in their mail, so they don't have to think about when to put it in. They get it, and they know where they're supposed to put it in right then. So it's been a really big hit for a lot of people. We've got, I'm not even going to say how many subscriptions because I don't like to brag, but it's plenty. It is plenty.
Well, that's great. And I do think that it does make it kind of gives a base toolkit of stuff that you can use. Like you were saying, it's not really a one size fits all kind of scenario, but kind of a toolkit you can use to adjust things as necessary. And like Steve was saying, you do such a great job of answering questions on your forum in the Facebook group that you can help them use those tools effectively. And I've seen good feedback again in your group and in other groups as well. So I think that it's a pretty good program you have set up, and that's probably why you have a number of subscriptions. So that's cool.
And another thing, going back to what Steve said about us answering questions and trying to help people in the forum, you wouldn't believe the emails and phone calls I get as well, because we've made my phone public. So I get so many calls every day, and I sit here and help folks while I'm working on other things. And sometimes it makes sales, sometimes it doesn't. I don't put my number out there to make sales. And it's a good thing I don't, because probably 90% of them don't, but that last 10% does. And regardless, it's worth it because I'm helping people overall. And there's some folks I've sent y'all's way, to Steve and to you, Marty. Yep. Told them to seek you guys out, because your the field you're in is what they're looking for. I can help get them started, but they need more information about the cannabis side of it, so I send them to you.
Well, that's great. We really appreciate that, and we want to help people in the same way too. I mean, not only do we want to promote the stuff that we're doing, but we want to share information for the people that we want to do it ourselves. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and the taller we all get, the better off we all are. So I feel like setting that baseline to where you can share what's successful or even what's unsuccessful is sometimes just as important. So it's kind of on that same level of what you were talking about with your heater there. Like releasing the information doesn't just help you and your customers, but people building their own, and sort of everyone who might be interested in finding it can go do that. So we try to provide a lot of free content, a lot of specialized content, and then try to, just like you do, take that 10% off the top and hope to be able to profit on that while you help the other 90% for basically free most of the time. And so I feel like that happens in a lot of industries, though. I feel like, there's plenty of people that do cold calling and have 90% failure rate just as often, and you still make your percentage off of a small part. So it is it's different in a way, but also the same. So makes it fun.
One of the things we've done, this is primarily me. It's my service side. The carrying side of me is when we send something out. If something goes wrong, let's say we send a heater out. We've had 3 out of a great many we've sent out that had issues. The first thing we do is say, okay, what happened? We get all the information we can, and if we decide it was our fault, that's the end of it. We send a new unit out immediately, along with if we want the old unit back, we send out a shipping label with the new unit to get that shipped back to us. And we've had that happen 3 times, and one just recently, and it was my fault, something I did the best I can tell. But regardless of whose fault it is, we're going to take care of the customer. And I think that's something that a lot of people out there that are in the business don't do. And I'm not going to say names, but a lot of people out there, they sell, but they don't back what they sell. They just sell it. And no matter what comes out of our shop, if something goes wrong with it, we're going to back it up and take care of it.
Hey, Roger, can I chime in? I have a question for you. You obviously mostly help, people that are growing regular fruits and vegetable kinds of things in their systems. Do you think it's a good idea for somebody who's looking at getting into this? You apparently have some packages for beginner type folks. Are they best setting their system up, making sure they can keep it alive, maybe grow a cucumber here and again, before they get into maybe a crop that they're going to freak out over, like their favorite strain that is supposed to do all that? What do you think about starting a basic system, having it stabilized and stuff with vegetables, maybe before moving to a specific, like cannabis?
As far as I can tell, any system you're starting up goes through the same process of getting cycled and maturing. Doesn't matter what you're growing, you're going to get better results the older it gets to a certain point. We see that around 8 months to a year. So whether it's lettuce or tomatoes or cucumbers, the leafy greens like the lettuces and what have you will do good up front, whereas the fruiting vegetables, it takes some time for your system to mature before you're going to see something good out of it. And I would assume, and I'd refer back to Marty or Steve, but I would assume that it takes an older system to get a good cannabis plant to come out of it. That's an assumption because I have never asked that question. But on my side of it, we're starting up a system, a brand new system. If you're getting enough nitrate produced, if you use something like our 3-week dose, you put all the other minerals in there that these plants need to produce good, hearty food that's going to kick something back to you instead of just buying Walmart produce. I mean, if you want something to grow that's going to produce something you can eat and give you no value when you eat it other than filling your tummy up, then I guess you can go to Walmart. But we want to see people do better than that. We want them to actually have something nutritious, and that's really the basis of how we got started in minerals for supplements. And then what pushed us into the 3-week dose was for, like we spoke about earlier with Marty, was it's kind of it's not a one size fits all, but it's so close that it really doesn't matter. And then you can tell me, and each individual person does, and I make notes, and I will alter their 3-week dose just a little for what they're growing, whether it be fruits and vegetables and what have you, or just leafy greens. I'll change that dose just a little for them. That way they get exactly, or as close to possible, exactly what they need. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think that cannabis sort of is an interesting plant too, because most of the time you're going through a veg period in the beginning, which the plant is really growing a lot of leafy green foliage, right? I mean, that's in the beginning, that's kind of what it's going to be consuming. So I feel like just like what you're saying is true. The older it gets, the more advanced your microbiology gets, and you start producing like probably I would say more phosphorus and getting more developed microbes that will make phosphorus more available over time and later,
potassium.
and potassium. And so I definitely think, and that's just going to be better for flower because that's obviously what you want. So, generally most of the time people spend, 30 days or so in veg and flip to flower, depending on the size. If you want them bigger, then obviously you're vegging longer. Or if you're working with like some CBD strains, they want to, a lot of them are juicing them while still in veg and just continuing to grow them in that way. And I have a friend here locally who's juicing primarily for his I think it's his grandma, maybe it's his aunt, great aunt or something like that. But anyway, he's just has a CBD strain that he keeps in veg all the time, and juices it primarily for her, and that's what she uses for her medication. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening along there, and who knows, maybe Ben can share some information on that too. We talked to him a little bit about that, but I think it's interesting in terms of, you were talking about the system and the way as it cycles and gets older, it definitely becomes better for flowering and and everything else. But in the beginning, when you are doing a lot of nitrogen cycling, it can be great for plants and veg. They'll really take off, and you'll see rapid growth and healthy plants for sure.
Well, especially in the biggest nutrient you see underdosed in aquaponic systems, especially even vegetable systems, is molybdenum. Molybdenum is one of the primary nutrients that is responsible for how quickly plants can utilize nitrogen. If they lack molybdenum, it will limit their nitrogen processing per day. So especially if you're going leafy greens, it can definitely accelerate growth if you are of an older system, especially, or even especially older commercial systems.
Cool.
Anyways, thanks a lot for coming on and talking to us a little bit. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, or do you want to mention your groups and your website again before we switch gears over to Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. If folks want to join the group for the free help, or if they want to buy something, either way, we don't require anyone to buy anything from us to get help. But trueaquaponics.com, you go there, or on Facebook, just search True Aquaponics. We're there. We'll add you to the group if you request. And we're one of the very few groups that keeps out the riffraff. That way, if you ask a question, you're not getting jumped and told how stupid you are because you don't know a basic question, or a basic answer to a basic question. That's where we really help people a lot. So I guess that's about it. And I'm going to sit back and listen to Ben. I'm intrigued by what he's got going on, and hopefully my mic's working. I hope.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. Again, if you guys are interested, there's a really awesome Facebook group called True Aquaponics, and then he has a great website called True Aquaponics. So be sure to check those out. And then thanks a lot, Ben, for coming on. You're with True Terpenes. Do you want to tell us what you guys are about and kind of what you guys do, and give us some education on what the different terpenes and why we should care about the different ones?
Absolutely. Thanks for the intro. So yeah, Portland, Oregon-based terpene company. We've been commercially selling them to product manufacturers and home consumers now going on 2 years. Been thinking about them and playing with them for about 2.5 or just a little bit longer than that. And the The simplest way to put it is we started as a botanical terpene supply company, botanical meaning that they are terpenes that were extracted not from cannabis, but from other plants. And we are evolving into a cannabis derived terpene and terpene products company. So creating CBD terpene vape pens and salves and things of that nature with a strictly medical focus. That's kind of where we come from. I was telling everybody before we started here today, got into the cannabis industry running medical clinics where people would come and meet with a doctor in order to get a medical card. And we really always focused on the patient education side of things, making sure that, there's definitely different levels of cannabis consumers, brand new people, longtime heads, et cetera, that were coming through the clinic. And we really made an effort to meet every person where they were at, not boring heads with things that they could probably teach other people, and not speaking over the level of knowledge of like a new consumer. So that's kind of what we approached terpenes with, was the idea that we need to be able to share what we're learning with all sorts of different levels of people within cannabis. So as a company, we really think of ourselves as the Terpene Resource Center. We work with licensed manufacturers in Oregon, Washington, soon to be California, Nevada, Massachusetts, Maine, et cetera, all the legal markets. We help people manufacture vape pens, enhanced tinctures, make edibles that have terpenes inside of them. And then, we do the very same sort of services in the places where there aren't legal markets, and we're working with people that are making medicine or and other products and need additional assistance and need access to the right information so that they can make substances that'll help with certain ailments and issues. So, like I said, what is True Terpenes? It really is a terpene. I really vibed well with what Roger was saying about how much effort and time you can end up putting into speaking with people on the telephone, which will never end up spending a dime with you, or because they don't need to, or they can't, or whatever. But and that's really the same sort of service that our company is invested into pretty heavily. Is a full-time staff of 3, soon to be 4 people answering the phone constantly. Really, really good web communications, live chat, et cetera, to just be able to meet the needs of people. And even if we don't necessarily have a product to sell them, to get them a satisfactory answer for their question. Because you're right. I mean, right now, people were hearing that, when we started doing this, it was as if we had to convince people that terpenes existed and were a real thing, and we weren't lying to them. And now it's progressed into a thing where people know about terpenes, but they don't know what they don't know. Most people are generally ignorant. That they might know a few of them to mention or to speak about, but the level of like applicable knowledge, like being able to walk into a dispensary, look at a package, and choose something, is few and far between. I'd say that maybe some of the people that are in this conversation right now might be the only one in your friend group, in your immediate vicinity of people that might be able to take a crack at it. Because as we've all seen with cannabis, even when CBD bust onto the scene, it was pretty difficult to get the average person to understand truly what THC and CBD could do for them, their ailments, their preferences, et cetera. So when you get such a complex class of molecules, we're talking about well over 200 different terpenes which have been identified within cannabis. That's a lot of different variables for the average person to keep track of. So the thing that I kind of wanted to speak on today was a concept that was developed by Dr. Ethan Rousseau, who is the cannabis researcher and pharmacognosist. He practices pharmacognosy. I don't know what that makes him, but basically that's the application of plant extracts as a medicine. And so that's actually his real specialty. He wrote a paper called Taming THC, which a friend of mine goes line by line through with him in a really great podcast episode. It's called Shaping Fire. Would highly recommend that. particular episode, Taming THC with Dr. Ethan Rousseau. And what Dr. Rousseau came up with after this kind of pivotal paper within cannabis science, what he recently released was this concept called terpene superclasses or hyperclasses. They're kind of both are terms that are being used to describe the same thing. And what they've decided to do is say we can break down the majority of cannabis by rule, say 85 or 90% of it, by saying it's either myrcene dominant, terpinolene dominant, or limonene dominant. Now, when Dr. Rousseau did it, he replaced terpinolene with beta-caryophyllene. But when you look at that actually on a chart, there's a lot of overlap and exceptions to that rule. So a graduate student out of Canada, about a month after Dr. Rousseau's paper, published on top of that and said, well, if we change out beta-caryophyllene and we put in terpinolene, we cover the majority of strains with very little overlap. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand and pay attention to for themselves. I want to give a shout out to Nevada specifically. The cannabis program there requiring terpene testing to be listed on the packages of all products that are sold is really big for consumers to be able to start to tap into what works well with them. So just to reiterate again, the big three terpenes that I feel like everybody should start to pay attention to as much as they can, and we'll get into why some of the exceptions of the rules if we have enough time, but are myrcene, limonene, and terpinolene. And with myrcene, you'll have really heavy sedation if it's the primary terpene. With terpinolene, you'll have what most people would probably relate to like a pure sativa, Durban poison, super lemon haze type high. And then with the limonene is really just neither of those. So you've got like a blue dream, fruity, kind of sweet, citrusy, not so sedative that you're going to sleep, and not so racy that it makes you uncomfortable necessarily. So, that's kind of the big push there. If you look at our website, which is buy-terpenes.com, you'll find that we have a kit that we call the essentials. I'd say that the next level of knowledge, if you kind of master the myrcene, terpinolene, limonene thing, there's another 3 terpenes we can throw in there: alpha-pinene, beta-caryophyllene, and linalool, which make up the primary 6 that I feel like the average person, I hope, in 3 years is able to identify. The reason why these are so important is because we want patients to be able to we want growers to be able to identify this, but like I said, I always think from a patient perspective, somebody purchasing a product, we want somebody to be able to walk into a dispensary and say, I need something that's 1-to-1 THC and CBD and dominant in terpinolene, because I know that that's what works really well for me. And I would like to stay away from things which are heavy in myrcene because they tend to make me fall asleep. And so that's really my educational push and a lot of my ambitions. Like I said, a lot of my business is I'm helping people make vape pens and tinctures and flying to their facilities and doing consults and things like that. But from a mission perspective and a goals perspective, I really want to help push. Everybody's been complaining about indica and sativa and it not being accurate for a fairly long time, let's say maybe 3 to 5 years. But I haven't really heard a solution to it up until recently when this new classification system became made aware to me. So that's kind of what is at the top of my mind right now. I'd love to answer some questions or take some leading questions if there's anything anybody wants me to speak on specifically.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more of a breakdown on what the different terpenes do in terms of effect. This is all new to me, so I'd love to hear more on that. I'm very interested. This is awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So when you say the effect of a certain terpene, there's a couple things to take into consideration. The first is that these chemicals are all adaptogenic, and by that, the endocannabinoid system is basically a balancing act in our body. So its job is to make sure that all of our systems, both what I would say electrical and physiological, work together well. So and that's both our autonomic and I can never remember what's the other nervous system. You got autonomic and sympathetic. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So that's both of our nervous systems. That's our rate of that's our heart rate. That's really it has so many different jobs. We've all heard it's sex, fight, flight, hunger. So it's all of these really deep things that it's balancing. And so when you take a terpene and somebody's out of balance, say really far to the left, and another person's really out of balance, really far to the right, that's how I personally account for why people have different reactions to certain strains, is because you're encountering this chemistry and you're at a different place than this other person that's just consumed it. So like terpene, and I'll use an example here of why it's hard to say what individual terpenes do, but we can make some rules, but there's so many exceptions. Um, so like you look at terpinolene, terpinolene by itself in all sorts of studies is shown to be sedative. And if you smell it, it smells like something that would be sedative. But when it is combined with limonene or alpha pinene or any of these other stimulating or more often stimulating compounds, it becomes the racy, kind of hazy high that we're all familiar with. Um, so that's really the thing to take into consideration, is what people need to be able to start to do is, there's material out there to start with, so you can get an idea. You could read and you could find out terpinolene is usually sedative if it's consumed by itself, but within cannabis, it tends to be more of a racy stimulating substance. Um, and then you basically need to consume that and then decide, how did it make me react in this scenario? And there's a lot of things that are going to contribute to that. Like, and I already just said it's the other terpenes that are there. And the thing that I would like to emphasize as well is terpenes that are found in the greatest quantity don't necessarily have the greatest therapeutic impact, and they don't have the strongest scent either. So, let's say a strain has 5% terpenes in it by weight, meaning that there's 50 milligrams of terpene in that 1 gram. And let's say 10 milligrams of that 50 is myrcene. It doesn't mean that myrcene is actually going to be the strongest scent or be the strongest effect that you take from consuming that. It could be a terpene that's found, and there's 1/10 of a milligram. And the example I could use for that is like our blue cheese, for instance, has a really, really obscure, unknown terpene, which is sort of hard to pronounce in it. I'm not going to take a crack at it at the moment, but it creates the blue cheese scent, this really strong funk. And it's less than a 1,000th of the profile by weight or by liquid volume. But when you open the bottle, it's the very first thing you smell. It's the first thing you taste when you hit the pen, and it has a very unique effect of its own. So, we're looking at all the peak terpenes. We're saying which ones is it dominant in, but it's not always the dominant terpenes that are going to indicate all of the flavor, all of the effect, all of the smell. And so, you can think of, I'm sure everybody here today can think of a strain that was unique to them when they smelled it for the first time. And you just thought, that's not like anything I've smelled before, or not something I haven't smelled in a long time. And this is a hypothesis of mine, but it's not going to be a terpene that is found in, that's 10 milligrams in there. It's usually something that's in there at like 1 or 2. And it's just got this really potent effect to it. So I think of terpenes, and now at this point in my life, all aromas as being really on a scale or a spectrum. And so things on the far left having 0 scent, we have a blend of terpenes that we sell that is basically imperceivable on scent and flavor, that people use to cut oils with, rather than using PG and VG and MCT, things like that. And then on the far right, we have these terpenes that are just unbelievably fragrant, more than you could believe from such a small quantity of liquid. Or crystal, depending on how pure it is. And like I said, the effect varies so much. So just to run through the common effects that people associate with terpenes, which I'd say are, as a rule, true, but there's always exceptions. You've got, we'll start with terpinolene. We'll say terpinolene, when consumed orally by itself, is sedative, but in most cannabis strains is stimulating. Limonene, a lot of people think limonene is like energizing and racy. But if you look at the literature on it for being consumed by itself, you'll find that it's all the rat studies and everything, and pig studies show that which you know, unfortunately, there isn't better data than to go off of, such as human studies in a lot of cases with these sorts of compounds. But you'll find, um, again, listed as sedative, but when you consume it in cannabis, most people think of those strains as uplifting and relaxing, and but not sedative. You've got beta caryophyllene, which if I had to pick one common terpene that's my favorite, I'd probably say it's beta caryophyllene. Relaxing, anxiolytic. It's also massively anti-inflammatory, so and it feels good on the skin. So it's really good for any sort of bruising or like tissue wounds, things like that. Not open wounds, but like any sort of really musculature pain. It works in seconds. You can feel it, being both analgesic and anti-inflammatory. It has the same effects, same reported effects when inhaled in all sorts of different cannabis strains and product formulations. Linalool is actually probably the terpene in cannabis that by flavor I seek out the most. Floral strains seem to really do me well, and actually like a strain that I think of for linalool would be like Hindu Kush or GDP, something along those lines. And then you've got the myrcene, which most people, you know, I'm going to drop a bomb here today and say most people have heard, or a lot of people have heard, that myrcene is found in mangoes, and that mangoes can make you get a lot more stoned. Dr. Rousseau again here he found, I believe, like 12 or 15 different varieties of mango and had them all analyzed for terpenes and found little to no myrcene in every single one of them. But what he did find was a pretty good quantity of terpinolene, which he believed would actually have been a therapeutically active dose. So it really is probably terpinolene in mangoes that's getting people stoned. But myrcene is definitely known as like the couch lock. There's several studies that show in humans that it slows fast twitch muscle response, which is the reason why you have to decide to get off the couch and then do it. And then, so we said beta caryophyllene, and then the last one would be alpha pinene, which very unique terpene. Love to run it in like an essential oil diffuser in our office. And it is a bronchodilator, meaning that it opens up the pathways of the lungs and allows you to access more oxygen with every breath. So again, an estimation, but it's my estimation that strains like this are the ones that are especially beneficial for like asthmatics and whatnot. If you've heard about cannabis being used in that fashion, not only is it anti-inflammatory, but it would open up the pathways. Alpha pinene is also known as being a memory enhancer. So, and I don't know if that's tied to the oxygen or some other mechanism, but that's always been of interest to me as well.
Well, it's cool. It sounds like you guys are big on patient education as well, so that if you do go into a dispensary, you know, like you were saying, you can at least be informed enough to do that. Because I find a lot of times you like you don't even find a very broad terpene profile at a recreational dispensary here in Oregon, for instance. So how do you recommend people, what resources can you recommend for people to find out different things about the strains themselves? Like, let's say if you listen to one of the terpenes you just talked about and they go, oh, well, hey, I really need that one. And I wrote it down here. So now how do I take that second step and find out like what strain do I need to go to?
Good question.
Find that.
So right now there isn't, as far as I know, like a reverse way to look it up. Like I couldn't, and you making some great ideas in my mind right now, but I couldn't just type in linalool in my location and have it brought up. I hope to work with a certain Portland-based company that I don't want to mention their name because I haven't asked yet if I could speak about it publicly. But I hope to work with a certain genetic cannabis company to take the information that they have amassed and start tying it. So basically you would get one of these verified strains that they've proven is the strain that you are calling it. And then I'd like to get the lab testing done on it. And then that would give us the genotype and it would give us the chemotype. It's not going to give us one of the chemotypes. It's not going to give us the phenotype because we don't know the physical characteristics of where this plant was grown. But I hope to start feeding information in. An applicable action step for what you just said, if somebody really wanted to find out got a strain and it worked just wonderfully for them and they wanted to learn as much as they could about it, the first thing I would do is go back to the dispensary and see if the lab tests that they received. So I guess when buying your cannabis, you can ask to see a lab test, and then shoot a photo with your phone so that you have it. And then when you go and you consume it, you can take a look back and see if there's any anomalies there.
So self-experimentation, you know, I kind of knew the answer to that. I didn't really think that there was, but it would be.
I can take it. Oh, and I can take it one step further. And I would say, you know, the other thing that you can do is if that information isn't available, but it worked really well for you, I'm pretty sure a lot of growers, like commercial growers that are in the rec market right now here in Oregon, would be willing, you know, if you said, hey, this is absolutely awesome, I'd love to write you a testimonial for it. Do you think you could get the terpene testing done on this? And they say no. It's like, if you really want to know, and it was, you know, it's that thing that just like, you wish you could just use this cannabis every day for the next 5 years, ask them if you can pay for the testing. It's going to be 75 or $100 to get the terpene. Or buy a sample yourself and just go drop it off.
I mean, especially if you're in a, you know, like if you're in a situation where, like, let's say you're treating like your ALS or something like life debilitating, you know, it's not like I'm going to go get it tested because I like the flavor or something like that, you know, like that sounds very elitist, you know, but what I'm talking about is if you did find something like that, because there are so few resources where you can't just go necessarily type in what you're looking for and get, you know, quality strain information, it might be worth it to you to buy enough and get it tested for yourself, or maybe even seek out cuts of it yourself and have it, you know, grown by your grower. And you'll might have a harder time doing that in the medical market in Oregon these days, but you know, hopefully you would be able to convince one of the rec growers that are growing their medical plants to be able to say, you know, hey, this is the strain that I need, and you're supposed to be growing it for me anyway. So
totally.
A lot of bigger testing labs now, especially in California, have pages for dispensaries where you can go on and look up all of their different strains. And as long as you know what strain you bought from that dispensary, they'll give you I know SC Labs does that for most of the dispensaries that do testing through them, and you can go right to their dispensary page and find out, you know, just look up the strain you bought from them, and they'll have the whole lab testing on there, and it's great.
Yeah, one of the labs here in Oregon puts the QR code right on it. I think it's green something. But it puts a little QR code on it, so you can just hit it with your phone
and then, you know, the other probably most important thing, just while we're on a similar topic, is when we're getting these lab tests, the other unfortunate thing is we're only testing for the terpenes that are found in the greatest quantities. So there's what's called an LOQ, which is basically the detection limit. I think it's the limit of quantification, is what it actually stands for, but you'll see it on lab tests. And we're only testing for the most popular at most. Like a lot of labs are at 10 terpenes or at 15 or 20. But even if you go to like SC or Pure Analytics, who's my choice in California, but we're kind of migrating most of our stuff over to right now, you're only getting 37 or 40, and that's really the other effort. Go ahead, you can ask that question.
We've developed our own extraction method, actually. Actually, Tommy has. And we went, so we have a couple of different ways that we can run the test. But in one of the scenarios, we can run it, and we can get 33% cannabinoids to 30 to 40% cannabinoids, and the rest is terpenes, okay? And that's it. But no fats, no lipids, comes out winterized. But no one can tell us what the other terpenes are. And that's been a huge problem for us, and one that we haven't been able to get a good answer for.
I bet. Yeah, that's you know, unfortunately, the only places. Well, so I have an answer for you. It's just not here yet. Yeah. Because unfortunately, no, not Israel. I wouldn't. I mean, their testing capacity is better than ours, but give me 2 months.
What are they saying now? Isn't it like some 40,000 terpenes or something like that they've identified?
Yeah, I mean, terpenes are a really diverse class of molecules.
The most advanced company I've seen from Israel can do 210 terpenes.
Do you know the name on that one?
I thought I just read somewhere.
I forget what the name of the company is. They were at a. It wasn't in Vegas. It was at a different show I was at that they were claiming to be able to test for 210.
You know, and it's not that far fetched, and that's kind of what I was just going to allude to. It's really just the matter of purchasing. It's having a
Well,
lab that's willing to do it.
what's the accuracy on all the mystery ones is my question. You know, no one has anything
Oh, really
to
high. You have to just go to other industries, and another kind of Rousseau concept is that Ethan Rousseau concept is that there are no terpenes, to his knowledge, right now that are only unique to cannabis. So that's what I was going to say a moment ago is that fortunately, it's really difficult to get an FDA license, but if you have an FDA license, you can go to like a nutraceutical botanical lab where they've already been quantifying all of these same compounds in other plants for a really long time. So it's not really actually a new science to identify most of these compounds. It's just there's no industry driving it forward within the cannabis space. It's not profitable for a lab to get all of these really expensive standards and then offer all of this additional terpene information to their client base right now because people don't have a way to use that information to make them money, so they're not going to pay for it. So that's what's been true. Now that's changing, and that right now that's why I say I'm starting this partnership with Pure Analytics. We're going to be buying to start 84 standards to add to their current 40, and that'll put us at the most in America right now at over 120 terpenes that we can test for. And that's really just what it comes down to is you have to kind of take a guess. You say, I think it's pretty likely that this particular terpene compound exists in cannabis. I'm going to go drop $1,200 on the 99.9% standard for it and add it into my GCMS library, and then maybe it'll pop in some trace amount in the future. And that's really what it comes down to. Fortunately, we found a study out of it was actually done for a police department, but we found one where they were testing all these organic compounds and over 260 of them were terpenes. And so we've got a pretty good reference list to begin with because they published all this data of the terpenes and other compounds that they found within cannabis, and they were using an NMR, which is nuclear magnetic radiation or radiance or the third letter is something along those lines, and it's like the most accurate form of analytical chemistry. And so, that's what the future is basically building the biggest library because you can get this report and it's got all these peaks on it from the gas chromatogram, but you just got to be able to identify those. And so, like I said, Israel right now does have the lead on that, will have the lead on it, but to a certain extent, it's only so useful for the consumer market and for the end user. But on a product development and research and development and therapeutics and medicine type thing, more data is absolutely what we need. So I'd love to get check out a sample of that stuff once we get the lab up and running and see what we can identify for you. I'd also love to hear more about the parameters, how you're running and getting 60% content, because that just sounds unreal to me. But obviously you're doing something.
I can't say certain things, if I may, Ben, but I do have a question on this with your knowledge of terpenes.
Okay.
I don't have any paper on the wall. I'm, a backyard chemist.
Okay.
So, I'm not credentialed or anything. I don't want to come off sounding like I'm all smart and everything. But I think very much in analogies when I'm working with like trying to understand what's going on inside of that of solvent and source material and that kind of stuff. What's your experience, or let me put out my experience and my working thing on this, is a lot of the terpenes, are they denatured? Are they broken when you're doing and when you drop them in ethanol?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know at a chemical level what's happening to them exactly. I assume that we expose them to, and I don't know the mechanism as to why this would happen, but I assume that they're oxidizing much quicker after that ethanol wash. So yeah, maybe it's because we're breaking them open because they, it's resin for the most part. So when that resin, when the outer crisp brittle resin coating is broken and we've got the inner liquid portion, that's oxidizing and becoming harder. And you know, basically, the act of us smelling it, we're smelling our medicine and our and that chemistry leave.
Yeah, I
So
understand that.
I will say I've never encountered terpenes that I thought were quality after the ethanol wash.
Yep.
After coming into contact with it.
That's what's kind of got me. It's like I've done some of Steven makes this live rosin press stuff that you'll bow before it because it's so rich. Now, granted, it has the lipids and the fats still in it.
Yep.
But even with that, the delicacy and the stuff that comes off it's incredible. And then you look at like French and cannoli, and how he's working.
Oh yeah.
And the preservation. I mean, that's his whole mission.
I just smoked some of his Blue Hawaiian at MJ BizCon, and it just blew me away. Like just flavor,
So those are terpenes. So we all know what we're talking about here. And I've been experiencing that if we like even if you do a decent butane or propane or hexane,
Tommy actually has some from Tommy actually has some from 50 that he's not.
Once you start dropping it into the ethanol, you lose it. And so I came at it backwards. I'm like, okay, maybe I should just take the stuff off the top, right? And then later on, go in and extract all the THC and those things out of it as a post process, not as the way we normally extract. And so we're able to back populate in these things we've taken off and saved off the top ever so gently. And I was talking.
See, that makes a lot more sense to me as to how you're hitting such high numbers.
Yeah.
Well, no. So
it's a bit of a grudge, I'll tell you, but
yeah.
Oh, I'm confusing the two.
No. Yeah, you're confusing the two. So he's talking about something else, a little bit different. I was talking about just in one straight process.
Got it. Okay.
Two separate things.
Yep. So Tommy, to speak to that, what you're doing is what I believe is it. You're doing that with is it like a stainless, like what sort of ethanol apparatus are you using for that?
I use 200 proof and I distill it myself on top of it just when I got issues. I do everything in medical stainless, obviously. I got to know that I'm not introducing garbage into where I'm trying to explain thinking.
So yeah,
actually,
I mean,
Tommy, why don't you bring up for a second? So Tommy has actually had a chance to distill a bunch of different solvents, and just to see what the hell was in them, and it was really so. And we'll actually be doing some posts on this publicly here in a couple of months, but. There's we've done a really good breakdown. And you want to talk a little bit about that? There's all this mystery oil and mixture shit and all these different solvents. It's really crazy.
If you want me to, I'll do a little short. I'd be interested in what Ben has to say, but what those things that I identified in the solvents might be doing to the terpenes in the extraction process. Because I don't have his expertise. I just kind of know what happens in the lab. So one of the things is talked about, especially on the open blasting community, we should all just put them to death. Let's just call it what it is. None of this like, hey, I'll do me, you do you. No, dude, you're doing you wrong. You need to stop. Open blasting with these solvents out of these cans and stuff, even that say they're 5, 7, 12, whatever time clean or filtered is the word. You can take those solvents, put them in your extracting equipment, run it through the equipment just as if you would run a run where you're trying to get your THC and CBD and everything out of there. You'll wind up, we call it very affectionately, mystery oils in the bottom of your container. So you put nothing in there. You have a completely clean container except for your solvent, and yet there's some stuff you can put in the dab pipe. That's just wrong. And so, we're going to post some of this kinds of stuff. If you're out there doing extracting, please, it's like just one run. It's a little bit of dry ice, whatever you're doing. Actually distill your own solvent. But what I'd like to ask Ben, so those are oils that are put in the processing machinery. You can imagine these things are in big vats and everything.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
wheels and grease. So there's all that kind of stuff in there. What effects with those kind of heavy crude oils, and they're pretty icky, I'm
Oh
telling
man,
you.
yeah, that's gross.
What's that doing to your terps and whatever? Is it affecting your extractions?
Well, just like you guys know, I mean, extraction really is garbage in, garbage out, except for when it comes to distillate. And then, you know, fortunately, we can get gold out of garbage. But you know, it just makes me think of, like, for instance, you know, terpenes are hydrocarbons. So by nature, through degradation, you get all sorts, you know, you get all sorts of crazy things. Like, if you guys are familiar with this study that came out of PSU, this probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Portland State University published the effects of high temperatures on dabbing.
Yes.
Okay.
That's,
So
I was going to go there with you. A lot of these terpenes should be taken in at edible temperatures, not at dabbing temperatures.
yeah, I mean, and really what this found was, it only looked at myrcene, but what it found was above 611 degrees, you had conversion from myrcene to benzene. So hot dabs literally are killing people.
I've been thinking.
Yeah,
I know you
I just
go.
don't know why anybody would do it to themselves. Sorry if anybody here is part of that, but it just hurts. Like, I don't know why. Like, the hurt, I listen to my body, and like when things hurt, I stop.
Right.
No, it's a great topic to bring up.
Yes.
And I'll bring it back to the questions about the. Oh, sorry.
I was just thinking, a combustion, you know, that's going to reach similar temperatures too, just in the same way, right? I mean,
you know, you hear a temperature range on combustion. You like, you know, when I vaporize with the volcano, I'm doing like 370.
sure.
I've heard flour starts to combust at about 410.
Right.
So I think you probably can reach those temperatures, but maybe you don't always.
Do you think you just can't
kind of,
burn hot enough, as opposed to a dab rig, which can start out hot enough because you're heating it up before you put it on there? Is that essentially?
and I'll say it's less because I knew what I was doing, and more because I just don't like using a blowtorch,
Right,
or Chaz,
sure.
like having a Chaz nail.
Mhm.
I've just always used an e-nail, and I've fortunately always hit it on low temperatures whenever I could manage it. So I'd say, you know, like 600 degrees is where mine's always sat before I knew about why. I just think I was like feeling it or tasting it. I do want to answer Tommy's question specific, and just say that you know, I would imagine very similarly when we hit, you know, these compounds are all really similar. Like, you know, it's we're not going to say that terpenes in crude oil are the same thing, but I would assume that somewhere in the same temperature range, maybe even to a worse degree, when you get these things to combust instead of vaporize, you're probably seeing similar conversion into a lot of different chemical compounds that you don't want to inhale. But I couldn't say that I know specifically.
And don't have the same medicinal benefits that I'm sure most, I mean, like you were citing studies earlier on, and I really love that you're bringing data, dude. I want to kiss you. The thing about it was, I'm pretty sure in those studies with the rats, they didn't have the rats dab in the terpenes.
Right. No, it was oral consumption, or it's oral or intravenous.
Yes, is body temperature, food temperature stuff going in you, and that's what the studies are. And I think this, I mean, I'm smoking some really nice terp stuff right here. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but I also smoke cigarettes. I chase women. I got all sorts of bad habits. I got some honey whiskey.
Yeah, and if you're not calling it medicine, it's a, you know,
but,
it's a different thing.
Yeah,
you're enjoying it.
That's the question of respect right there. That's the question of respect.
Well, I think you touched on the you know, on the solvents that you distilled down and found this mystery oil in, and you know, that I think that's concerning to me on another level too. Like, not only what you know, and you were talking about garbage in, garbage out, and you might be able to, you know, to do some stuff with it to get some gold out of it. But what I'm concerned about it is putting the good stuff that I grow in and getting garbage out because of the solvent that somebody uses. You know,
totally.
You know, like I don't want to grow this.
I would love to do my extraction. I would love to do my extraction to the point where it not only respects what you grow, but my extraction technology will not kill your fish. That's my overall top level goal.
Right, and I think that you know, it's just you know, that's the concerning part to me as somebody who you know, probably wants some of their stuff extracted, but I also don't want it ruined either. So, or I don't want contaminants brought in through the extraction process, and that's ultimately what you're talking about. Even people that think you know, maybe they're doing it relatively clean, right? Are not is essentially what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, like those
So
12 times clean or 7 times clean, you know, they're paying twice the money for it, and it basically has just as much crap in it because it comes off the same thing. They're just filtering it. It doesn't remove that stuff from the solvent. The only way to remove it is to distill it at proper temperatures, let the solvent you want come off, and let everything else remain. Same way Ben's grabbing all the terpenes.
it's true. It's actually I was gonna liken that and say, you know, fractional distillation was developed for the petroleum industry to make gasoline and kerosene, and I don't know all of them, but I've heard that crude oil has like 23 cuts to it or something like that, 20 plus different fractions basically that have different uses. And so it, you know, you're exactly right. It's all the same technology for separating crude oil into kerosene and gasoline, or
Your
separating.
columns are just 4 stories tall. That's all.
Yep. Exactly.
Yes, that's
Same
correct.
column.
Oh man, so a lot of good stuff going on here. I lost my train of thought on my next point to kind of follow up with that, so I apologize. I'm gonna have to hit a pass here.
Do you want to explain to people a little
Get
bit
a
about
bond
the?
instead.
You want to explain to people a little bit
Oh.
about the entourage effect and how the turkey?
Totally.
Yeah, you kind of touched on that a little bit, but you know, maybe explain that a little bit more.
Totally, yeah. And then actually I remembered my question. It was, Tommy, do you have a suggestion for solvents? Like, from everything that you've seen, is there something you like better than the others?
If
Aside
you're
from
making-
aside from ethanol.
Yeah.
Aside from ethanol, because ethanol, of course, but I mean, like, within the hydrocarbon side of things.
I'd like
Oh
to-
no, there's a non-hydrocarbon that we've been having a lot of luck with terpene stuff that we could
Okay.
talk a little bit more
out
offline
of
on.
the common ones, I'd go for butane if you're doing it properly. And I mean, like,
Okay.
running a real tight ship and really doing your purging and everything. It's a brilliantly safe solvent that is used throughout the pharmaceutical, food industries, cosmetic. It's like one of the big ones for everything that you're used to dealing with 100% safely. Just in those settings, very often they deal with it with more respect than many people in the cannabis space tend to deal with it. But that's a really good solvent out of the normal ones. But if you're really going for medicine and you're really honoring the kind of stuff that Ben's bringing up around the terpenes, and I've had some of this experience also, I go for a method like Steve teaches, doing the bubble hash kinds of stuff, because you just can't get to ruining the stuff when you treat it with such respect, like Steve does when he's making his live rosin presses. Other than that, if you know you can't go through all that bubble bag kind of stuff, a very low temperature infusion directly into coconut oil, man, will that hold on to the frickin' terpenes for the average person who has to do this in their kitchen. Coconut oil is going to save the most terpenes to eat in your body at the proper temperature than anything else I have found to date. And I want to be smacked down on that, because if there's something better, I really want to know it, because this shit's really pretty good.
As long as you decarb them properly. In fact, Tommy, do you want to touch on your decarb method? I'm sure Ben would appreciate it.
Yeah, would love to hear.
Okay. Well, this is funny, Ben, that you're here. My standard story is, you know, when you're decarbing, if the entire neighborhood can tell that you're decarbing your medicine, you're paying for their medicine.
Totally.
So I do all my decarbing like at home. I suggest in quart-sized mason jars. Just stuff your material in there, put the top on it like you're going to do some regular canning. These jars are made for canning. It's perfectly fine. You put it in a 215, 220 degree oven for 45 minutes. And then you take them out and you let them settle down. I like to let them go for 24 hours because it doesn't matter. And the plant material reabsorbs some of the terpenes that have been liberated with the heat. And you can't smell it in the whole neighborhood. So that means in that jar is still the terpenes that Ben's so excited about, I'm so excited about too. Now what you do is you pour your coconut oil in that very same jar, okay? Put the top back on it, put it back in the oven, and let it sit there for about 5 days. Now, that's if you're going with the THC kinds of stuff. You're trying to get the CBN. I'm somebody who's missing 7 discs in my spine. You can do it shorter times. You won't get as much CBN processed through it. I drain that oil out of that material. I repack it with some more coconut oil. Do another 3 days. Drain that out. And for at-home people who are in states where it's hard to come by your medicine, if you're needing to eat it and get your benefits out of it and get the kinds of things, the terpenes, that's the best way I have found for the home person or even the professional person who really needs ace medicine to capture the most stuff, because I think there's so many things there. Ben was identifying, the number of terpenes he'll be able to address. He's, talking about 6 here tonight. There are so many there that we don't even know to say their name, bitch. Okay? I mean, it's like they could be like some of the most wonderful terpenes. And out of every method, I've tried to capture my medicine because I spent a lot of time growing it. Not as good as the people on this podcast here, but worked hard at it. I was really interested in preserving it, and that's my soapbox. I get the hell off that.
Okay, well, hey, I appreciate that thorough explanation. That really helps. Personally, I think of myself as somebody who can manufacture products as long as there's a licensed laboratory open, because I've always had the benefit of my time in managing and handling cannabis plant material, of working in kind of like high-tech facilities. So I'm always really encouraged when I meet people like yourself that can tell me like, oh, dude, go down to the hardware store and buy these 6 things, and we're gonna be, you're well on your way to making some incredible products. So appreciate you sharing the at-home version of that. And maybe just to jump back to the previous question that was posed, speaking like more on the entourage effect. The entourage effect is a term that Dr. Ethan Rousseau really popularized, but I'll give a little bit of historical credit to Dr. Mel Frank, actually. Mel Frank, I don't know the year that he said it, but wrote it down, but called the same phenomena the symphonic effect, which I actually really like that name for it as well. But an entourage is basically a group of individuals, a gang, what's another word for that? A syndicate, that works together towards a common goal. And that term within cannabis today basically means that, and it's been interpreted to mean that whole plant medicine is better than remanufactured kind of like pharmaceutical grade cannabis, which I think is both true and false. I'll say that off the shelf, the ability to take a joint and inhale it and receive medical benefit, there's almost nothing better than flower. But for somebody that needs a very specific, consistent dose of cannabis to control a true medical condition, I don't think that pure flower is always necessarily the best way to go about something. What if you need a ton of CBG, for instance? You're going to have to consume a ton of whole plant flower to get to that point. So entourage effect really just means that it's not just the THC, it's not just the CBD, it's not the 6 terpenes that I just suggested, and it really kind of leads into the question from before, from earlier today, which was, which terpenes do what, and it's to say that they all work together to have a synergistic effect. that terpinolene plus limonene plus myrcene is going to lead, plus THC plus CBD plus all the other cannabinoids in a given strain are why that strain has its effect. It's the idea that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. So, that's part of it's, that's really the simplest way to say why it's hard to narrow down, this strain does X and this is Y. And it's because there's so much chemistry going on. Even in our simple lab test that we referenced earlier, we've got maybe 40 data points of terpenes to look at, 11 or 15 different cannabinoids, and then a bunch of other unknown compounds as well. And so, the entourage effect is just basically outlining, and it's a way to view that within this strain, the therapy or the benefit, the enjoyment that I'm receiving isn't really due to one thing. We're not going to say the THC got me stoned, because anybody here or that's listening that smoked just distillate knows it's not really that exciting. It used to be to get like a gram of clear or distillate or whatever you want to call it, you were paying $80, $100 or something like that. But now you look at the market for distillate, and distillate is dropping really quickly, and the complex 6-star bubble hash rosins and live sauce and all sorts of other really terpene rich complex full plant extracts are really the ones that are taking top dollar again. And it makes sense. They're artisanal. That it takes skill and care, and it's completely garbage in, garbage out manufacturing. So, I think that term in popular conversation right now, a good way for somebody to use it is you could say in conversation, like, I'm not sure what it is about that strain, but the entourage effect has me feeling like X. Because, you can, like I said, you can look at the lab test, you can get a pretty good idea for what's going on, but ultimately it's like, we'll go back to Dr. Frank's term for the effect, the symphony. You're feeling it all. You don't go to the orchestra and say, wow, the violin is, you might sit there and say, wow, I love the violin, but you can't say that the entire experience that you just heard was because of one of the instruments. It's everything working together to bring you that enjoyment. So that's about as much as I could really say about it generally, but if there was any specific questions about it, I might be able to lend more to that.
No, that particular part was awesome. I don't, again, I'm very new to terpenes and what they should do and why I should care about different ones, and this has been great. I don't, what other information do you have for people maybe that are kind of just trying to get their feet wet or trying to understand or trying to wrap their head around the whole terpene market?
So the first thing to read would be, go to our website. It's trueterpenes.com, and then there's buy, B-U-Y, terpenes.com. Both of them have a little bit different content on them, but definitely educational. Even on the buy site, there's actually a little bit more content on there. And so from learning about our company and like the manufacturing of products using terpenes, that sort of thing, there's that avenue. For basic terpene science, I'll say it again. I'll plug the podcast that I just think I just got to commend the host Shango for getting Dr. Rousseau to do this. But they take Taming THC, which is really the paper, like if you read anything written about terpenes online right now, I'll say that we're doing some of the most creative and new kind of content generation, but it's mostly the same 3 or 5 articles, 3 of which have been written by Dr. Rousseau, reworded. So anything that you've read about terpenes before likely came from somebody who read Taming THC and then summarized it. So I'd say go to the source, just go to PubMed, Google PubMed, and then go to the main site. Just type in Dr. Ethan Rousseau and read all of his papers that are in relation to cannabis. He breaks, like I said, he's a pharmacognosist, which is a dying breed of plant scientists, because most people went into pharmacology. But this is using plant extracts in application to human health. So that's his specialty. So he goes line. So I'd say first read the paper it's not the hardest scientific paper you might have ever read, but it's certainly not light reading. So you maybe want to do it with a notebook and take some notes and then Google some stuff. And then after you've kind of made your way through it, or you maybe do this and vice versa, the Shaping Fire podcast has Dr. Ethan Rousseau go through basically every paragraph or every 3 sentences or so. Shango reads it out loud, and then Ethan explains exactly what that means in relation. So he has that paper. He has a follow-up paper to it that I can't think of the title. He most recently just released a paper called Cannabis Pharmacology, a few usual suspects, and no, sorry, the usual suspects and a few new promising leads, I think. He basically revisits the taming THC, adds additional information to that conversation, and then discusses some new cannabinoids and some other terpenes that weren't previously discussed. And that I think has about 35 terpenes in it or so. And that's the most that's really publicly explored. So between Rousseau's literature, the podcast with him discussing it, and then our website, we also have something that we're working on right now. It's not 100% where I'd like it to be, but it's, God, what is that forum name? It's I'll have to get back to you guys. I'll send you the link on it. But we actually built a forum for terpene talk, and it's been up for 18 months or so, and it's got some pretty good stuff on it. And it's really it's a forum, so it gives people the ability to ask questions, and we try to get some experts in various fields to answer those. But unfortunately, I guess to wrap up this question about where to learn more, there isn't a lot of different unique content outside of academia. There's a lot of organic textbooks and organic chemistry textbooks, and there's stuff from pharmacology, and there's stuff from aromatherapy and essential oils and things of that nature, but nothing that's really spelling out this is how to decipher and use cannabis terpenes for your health. So it requires it requires the assimilation of information. I'd say paying an aromatherapist for a basic 101 would be in somebody's best interest if you really want to get into because cannabis use actually is aromatherapy by definition. Aromatherapy is not, before I got into all this, I would have told you I thought aromatherapy was smelling scented things for your health. But what I've found out the definition is it's actually the application of aromatic plant oils for therapeutic value, and that's cannabis oils. All of the oils within cannabis that we're talking about, whether it's hash or flower, are aromatics. It's just any compound that has a benzene ring, essentially. So smoking a joint is aromatherapy by definition, and so there's a lot of people that have specialized expertise in using aromatic plant oils from other plants for health, and they're using a lot of the same terpenes. You got linalool and lavender, you got myrcene and lemongrass, you've got all the pines with the pinene, you've got terpinolene in all sorts of coniferous trees and apples, and so you've got a really big knowledge base of people that have been practicing this gentle medicine for a really long time, probably feeling insane because nobody's listened to them for the longest time and really considered it. I used to think it was foo-foo until I really got into learning more about plants and biology and whatnot. That's really it. It's kind of it's the journey of 1,000 miles, because you're going to go, you're going to learn some biology, and you're going to learn some chemistry, and you're going to learn some aromatherapy, and you're going to learn some botany. We didn't even really get into that, but why do plants even make these oils is a whole interesting and fascinating conversation on its own. Plants can't shout or sprint, so they smell. They can't yell for help, and they can't tell somebody to get away from them, or they can't run away from a fire or a bug. So they use these compounds, these chemicals, to basically communicate with the world around them, whether that means they're defending themselves or attracting a beneficial relationship, for a pollinator to come in or for something to eat their fruit and carry the seed far enough away that it could progenate. It's really just like any science. I just have never been so interested in a branch of science that I've learned all the sub-sciences. But like I said right there's 5 different divisions you could go, and then from that you get into the level of specialized knowledge like what Tommy's doing, which is you could have somebody that's That's a certified organic chemist that's worked in pharma, but they don't know how to take cannabis plant material and manipulate it and handle it in order to get the extraction that they're after right now. I'm sure with enough trial and error and based on experience they could get there, but it's certainly an art and a science what all the extractors of the world are doing right now too, being able to, taking this, whether it's fresh or cured plant material, and turning it into a usable substance, and all the lessons that can be learned from that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think starting with Rousseau, and then kind of figuring out, are you a grower, or are you a manufacturer, are you just an extreme connoisseur, etc. And then you can kind of take a different pathway to get to the sort of knowledge that would be beneficial to you.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. No, that was a really awesome explanation on that. I know when I met you out in Vegas, you guys introduced, you had I think a packet of 8 terpenes and another packet of 6. Do you want to maybe talk about the different ones you guys had and the ones you were giving out?
Yeah, totally. So we just call them Terp wallets, super original. And it is just an essential oil carrying case. So it's a um, nylon and what is the other substance? It's basically just got these rings in it. It's a nylon pouch with or neoprene pouch with nylon elastic band loops in it. And basically, in one of them, we've got what we call, and I mentioned earlier, our essentials pack, which is myrcene, limonene, terpinolene, linalool, limonene. I might have just said limonene twice. Sorry, beta caryophyllene and alpha pinene. So it's got like the 6 main terpenes that we suggest people try to teach themselves and be able to identify by scent and flavor, in a convenient little carrying pouch, so that you can kind of use it as a reference standard when you're sticking your nose in a bag. You can smell one first and then compare it afterwards. Show it to people. We found that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around what is a terpene physically, like what does it look like and how would I handle it, etc. So it's just a small bottle of basically an essential oil, but more purified than essential oil because it's just one single compound. And that's like the basic 101 education kit. And then, so that was the 6-bottle one. The 8-bottle was just 8 of our strain profiles. And really simply put, what we do is we get a sample of cannabis, we test it for its terpene content, and we get this report back like we were referencing earlier. And then we take our individual single terpenes like limonene and myrcene, and we blend those together and we recreate the cannabis profile. And then people take that and they add it into their extracts like THC distillate in order to give the personality of, say, Granddaddy Purple to the blank canvas of distillate. So we had these sample packs that have 8 different strains in them, with the idea that you can add about a drop per gram to your dabs, let that sit overnight, and then consume it. You've got a brand new enhanced extract, or you can add up to between like 5 and 10% by weight to distillate or CO2 oil and make a vape pen. It's kind of our main product line is the strain profiles. It's where we do the majority of our business with, like I said, the licensed manufacturers.
I'm kind of a dummy on all this, learning as we go. But I have a huge base of people that would like to know, particularly with diseases, these chronic diseases. People are getting chronic fatigue, UC, Crohn's disease, sarcoidosis. Yeah. Is there anywhere we can go to look and see what do you call them, terpenes would help with that, or do you know that off the top of your head?
What I would say the closest thing to what you just requested would be to go to the world of aromatherapy and find the plants and oils that aromatherapists are already prescribing for those sorts of conditions. And then you can break down that, you can find out pretty easily if you'd like type in like lavender oil terpenes, you'll find a report from, you know, the first one I think that shows up on that one in particular, probably the only one I know off the top of my head. You get something for like the late 70s where they identified like 50 different terpenes that were within lavender oil. So it starts to give you an idea of what's in the plants that are in the whole plants that are being prescribed to people, and it gives you the ability to start kind of diving into it. But there isn't a really good resource for that right now, where you could just say, you know, like for instance, and I could just tell you offhand because I've had enough people call me, like people that have gastrointestinal issues are finding limonene really beneficial. They're mixing it 5% by volume with coconut oil, putting it into a capsule and consuming it. But yeah, you know, it's unfortunate right now that it's still on an anecdotal kind of scale. It's really a lot of self testing. But I have found personally that like I said, finding that like for instance, you could find that for like muscle discomfort, ALS, things like that, lemon balm is often prescribed to people, or like citral. There's a really strong human study that was done that basically started with a number of participants that were on antidepressant medication and did, I believe, 90 days of inhaling through an essential oil room diffuser, citral. By the end of that study, over 3/4 of the participants quit taking their medication and were just relying on essential oil application. That's not the right word. They were just relying on essential oil use for their daily therapy, basically. So, I mean, there's a lot of really strong anecdotal evidence, and you'll hear, you know, from time to time you'll hear these success stories. Like that's how I found out about the beta caryophyllene being so anti-inflammatory. I had a couple of different people that had really, really severe, you know, whether it be phantom limb pain or quadriplegia or paraplegia, et cetera. We had a lot of people that had nerve pain that were using beta caryophyllene and applying it directly to their nervous system, whether it be the spine or to a specific pain point, and they were getting a lot of relief off of that, like enough that they felt the need to call and make sure that we knew, and you know, just we're very thankful. So, and we assemble that information. We're hoping to organize it into something that'll be a lot more useful for people. But it's one of those things where we also want to prevent, and we don't want to also like spread misinformation or false hope or, you know, anything like that as well. So kind of a delicate balance. We're not really trying to hide information. We just want to make sure that we're going to truly be accurate.
Man after my own heart.
Oh, thank you.
It's always great to see all different kinds of different explanations coming on the show and explaining different technologies to us, and especially with having a couple extra guests on the show. I know you know, it's been a great time to get those kinds of explanations on the show. I know we've Tommy and I have been working towards the feeling that hydrocarbons and ethanol will denature some of the lighter and more flavorful terpenes, and that's kind of what he was kind of asking about indirectly. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
You're there, Tom?
Mostly the ethanol, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think some of the hydrocarbons.
What are some of the things
not passing through actually?
Yep. Things you see as kind of the future of terpenes and terpene research, and kind of how it plays into the consumer market for those that might be kind of looking to see how this might be into their daily products. I know what is it, Nevada is requiring terpene testing in their stuff for next year. I think California.
Totally. So, you know, really what I just see for the future, it's hard to say, but I think it's just better identification and quantification and true structured research. So actual studies being done on the different terpenes and how they, you know, apply to a specific mechanism, just like we would for any sort of like pharmacology. So just like pharma has to put something, you know, they're trying to prove that a certain percentage of people respond to a certain treatment program. same idea. I think that'll be applied with terpenes within cannabis and with the cannabinoids as well. But within the next year, I just think that general knowledge of terpenes will grow. The ability for like the trend setting class to identify what it is that they like, and then that, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years will really trickle down into consumer products being better positioned and better worded on the labeling and packaging in order for somebody to walk in and say, oh, that says it's sedative, and it's sedative and causes anxiety in less than 2% of people that use it, or something like that. But I just think personalized medicine is really what will come of a better understanding of cannabis. Or sorry, a better understanding of terpenes, rather.
Well, that goes along with cannabis. No, that's really great. Do you want to tell people how to find you again, and how to reach out to you if they have additional questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website for information, I really would recommend just going to the website and checking out our Learn section. It's going to be the quickest way for you to kind of digest this information. It's kind of hard to necessarily get it all on a phone call. So if you do your homework first, it usually makes things go a little bit easier for both ends. So the website is buyterpenes.com. And we're on Instagram, really highly active at trueterpenes.com, or actually no .com, sorry, just at trueterpenes. And then to slightly lesser effect, but still definitely there and responsive, we're on Facebook at True Terpenes. And then the phone number itself for the company main line is going to be 888-954-8550. We're open from 8 to 4 Pacific.
Awesome. That's really great that you guys provide that kind of service.
Oh, thank you. And
thanks for joining us.
It's just what I want to say is this is a great panel. Was really glad to learn more about aquaponics. It's been something that's been of kind of personal interest to me. I don't really have a business application for it, but I've just I got introduced to it when I was 12, and I just have always thought it was really cool. So I'm glad to see that's still alive and well and thriving. And I hear about people getting systems all the time. So really cool show to be on and be a part of as well. And the level of conversation and content and everything really well produced. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. You've been a great guest. Thanks for being here, providing such great information. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. And
awesome.
All righty. So we'll get to what everyone. Well, before I think Roger's probably going to have to get going before too long, so we'll do him first. Roger, what have you been up to in your garden?
Man, we are growing everything. We got cucumbers galore. You wouldn't believe it. First time ever I've had so many cucumbers going so well. Tomatoes out the wazoo. So I could have a salad of tomatoes and cucumbers. We just started a new test with some clay pebbles for purple onions, which would work for any onion, as well as radishes or any other vegetables going to, create like a beet or onion or radish. We're really excited about that. We just got a small little section we've done that in. That's basically what we're up to. And of course, pest control has been a big thing. And because of you hooking us up with the gentleman with Kapow, anytime we get a pest, we spray right quick and it goes nuts on killing them. So, as well as powdery mildew, we got hit with powdery mildew recently, and we were able to eradicate the powdery mildew and end up with plants that were producing a huge amount of fruit. It was a squash plant that really got hit the worst. And it just started really producing after hitting it with the Kapow. We're very happy about that. Very excited.
So it's been a while since we had Kapow on, but if I remember right, that's the lemongrass castor oil based mix. Is that right, Steve?
That's correct. It's a lemon oil from India and castor oil base. is what it is.
Right. Very cool. I had good luck with it too. I did get some as well after we had them on, and I had really good luck with it. And I had actually used lemongrass oil previously to that, and so I just kind of mixed it in with my other sprays and stuff that I do as well because I like to grow my own stuff, and I want to grow some lemongrass at some point. I'll see if I can find some so I can grow my own that. But right now I like to grow like garlic and sage and peppermint, oregano. Those are all great ones that you can then sort of recycle back in or add in. If you get oils, you can add a little bit to the cacao if you wanted to, a very small amount, just to mix it up a little bit because I feel like they start to develop a tolerance after if you use it repeatedly. So that's the only twist I like to put on it, but I do like their end product that they put out. It's very well emulsified. It's highly effective. I feel like in smaller amounts than than some other products. So I feel like the concentration is pretty well dialed. So I've had really good luck with it too.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
Just, because I'm not a grower like you guys, I just had a silly question in my head. And there are no silly questions, so here it goes. What if you were to take some of Ben's terpenes and put them in with your cacao to confuse the critters? You'd be confusing them with something that you wouldn't mind having around the plants, right? Would those terpenes have any effect, do you think, on the critters?
I think it would probably have a similar effect because a lot of the terpenes are basically from the essential oils of the plant. Right.
And that's kind of their part of their original purpose, even in other plants, right? I mean, that is like I think Ben was talking about. They can't run, they can't do other stuff. So what they do is they smell bad or smell different, and create those different terpenes to repel insects or do different stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that you would do that, and really, like Brain was just saying, that's what we're doing with the terpenes that we're extracting out of other plants anyway.
Instead of a regular, and then you have a bud that smells and tastes like a meatball. If we were to do the lemon or the mercy or something, one of those fancy ones, maybe it would ooh, it's like diesel now,
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be an interesting kind. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah,
I can jump in a little bit on this. I know there's plants out there that's been proven that when they're attacked, when they're healthy and they're attacked by a pest, they will put off a certain aroma that will drive pests away from them. And they also host other plants that will put off an aroma that attracts that particular pest to that plant, and the plant thrives because of it, and the plant that's next to it thrives because it doesn't have that pest. And from what I'm learning tonight, it's these terpentines or terpen that are doing this. That's the aroma they're putting off. So it's intriguing to me. It's a whole nother venue for me to look at, and I am just intrigued by it.
Well, there's a bunch more. There's terpenes, there's flavonoids, there's ether or esters. There's a whole range of different compounds that create scent and create different things. Terpenes and cannabinoids are only part of about 8 or 10 different compounds that all account for that. So, even though we're really getting into the cannabinoids and the terpenes, we're still looking at a fraction of really what we'll ultimately be looking at. Probably in another 5 or 10 years, we'll be looking back going, man, we were missing out on all those other compounds. What the fuck are we thinking?
Yeah.
We're just the same way we did 5 years ago when we didn't know about all the different terpenes, and 5 years before that when we didn't understand THC and CBD and everything else, and I mean, look at all the leaps that we make on a regular basis. Just analyze this stuff, the better we're able to understand it.
Look back about 3,000 years and ask the same question then, and you'll see those folks understood it. We don't yet, but we're getting there.
Yep. What about you, Brain Grow, it's nice to have you back. What have you been up to?
Well, I got a few plants growing, couple dual root zones, and one that is straight aqua with no soil. And I'm loving how the dual root zone plants are coming out. And I'm also testing grinded up pumpkin seed, basically like a pumpkin seed powder, to see how that works as an iron supplement for my plants. Because I was doing some research on things that were high in iron, and that was one of the things that commonly kept on popping up. So I'm trying that out to see how that works as an iron supplement. The the strain that I'm growing is Ninja Fruit, and I have 3 different phenos of that. So the one that I have in the aquaponic system without soil is the one that I'm testing the pumpkin seed out as iron. And so far, it looks like the leaves have already started to gain a little bit of green back. So looks like it's working. So see how it does in the long run.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it also has stuff like magnesium, manganese, and other minerals. So small amount of phosphorus.
Awesome. I'll have to look into that.
Let's see what
Sounds like
else.
it might be a good compost tea or ferment ingredient.
Yeah, something to add to it, definitely. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all I've been working on. I added another light in my little flowering area, so hopefully that'll give me a little bit more yield. Looking forward to seeing how that goes because I'm going to be popping flower on 2 of these plants in probably the next 4 or 5 days. So I'm pretty excited to finally be having some plants that are fixing to be going into flowering. Like in veg, they already smell amazing. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Cool. What have you been up to, Tommy?
Oh, testing. Maybe I can show you some of the stuff I've been up to.
Nice hat, Tommy.
There's that one. There's this one. So I'm making base things and then doing some different experimenting, mixing the terps like we were talking about back in with uh, heavy THC concentrate, seeing if we can preserve the flavors and pass them through. So we're doing some of that stuff. That's been kind of fun. Actually did a little bit of relaxing. I've been on being a road warrior. We haven't had the show for a little bit. We've kind of been sticking and moving, I guess they call it, going from thing to thing, and a lot of exciting stuff. Went to Vegas and had met a lot of really nice, fun people. Guess met the gentleman from the show tonight. Ben, he was out there at Vegas, so doing a lot of things like that. But really pretty happy to come home, be in my own shower, be able to put my arms around my girl. I haven't seen her in like forever, and so that's been great. But yeah, just working on a lot of extraction kinds of stuff, figuring different things out, doing some planning for some facilities, helping Steve with a little bit of project stuff, and that's been pretty much it, I'd say.
Yeah, we're working with the patent lawyer, getting all locked down. Some other fun stuff. So, it was Dennis Perone's house for Thanksgiving, so that was a lot of fun. Always really awesome to hang out with Dennis and the crew over there. Whole house full of amazing people, and I don't know, always a good time to go spend time. I know Tommy and I have all. Tommy's also spent a bunch of time with them, and just a really fun group of people to be around, and very knowledgeable as well. So always good to just sit around and listen.
One
Learn
of
all
the things,
kinds of cool stuff.
we met somebody else from their crew there, Steve, but one of the things I like about them is I see, people on the show, a lot of the guests, we all have a lot of opportunity here, and I really like the show that we share opportunity with each other and knowledge with each other. But I can't help but look at people like Dennis and his crew and some of these folks. We wouldn't have 1,000 of the opportunity that we all have here on this show without people like that. Man, they didn't just knock down fences in front of us. They got a bulldozer and cleared trees out of the way so we could just, go off and be involved in the things that excite us and that we're wanting to bring to market and everything. And that's awesome that you got to have Thanksgiving with us. That's way cool.
Yep, absolutely. It's really, really awesome. Been spending a lot of time with a bunch of their people lately, and a lot of really good time. Got to meet Richard Eastman the other day. That was pretty interesting. He's quite the interesting character down in LA. So he does a lot of compassionate care down there, and just a lot of cool people. We'll actually have the guy from East Bay Compassionate Care Center on the show here in the next few weeks. For exactly what day. Jorge Cervantes also agreed to come on the show sometime in the second half of or early January. We'll get him on. So, and if anyone's interested, be up at Emerald Cup. We did and some of our throw down. So, and yeah.
I think you were breaking up there, at least on my end.
What's
yeah,
that?
that's what it sounded like over here too.
I think you were breaking up, at least on my end there, Steve.
Yeah, break it up.
Something about the Emerald Cup, but I think a couple of the other things broke up there.
It's the
We'll be
the
at the,
Cannabis
Tommy and
Plate.
I will be at Emerald. Tommy and I will be at Emerald Cup. So if you guys are looking to hang out with us, definitely come out to Emerald. If you don't know what Emerald Cup is, you haven't been in the cannabis industry long enough.
Allegedly, I'm not saying anything in this reality, but allegedly you might be able to take something out of this pen that would be worth going to Emerald Cup for. I'll just say that.
Shame on me.
Yep, I'm sure Roger's gonna hop on the first plane out to Santa Rosa.
Hey man, I can do it.
Well, it's next weekend, not this weekend. The fall in Santa Rosa. So definitely come hang out. Come visit our.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to originally, eventually come hang out with you and I don't know, do something.
Oh yeah, you come out to Ouroboros and get a tour. It'd be a lot of fun. Spend a day touring.
I would love to hang out with you and Kim for a day. Terry and I would just love that to death. It'd be awesome.
There you go. That'd be great.
So never mind. That's the later on conversation.
Sure. Yeah, no, we'll talk about that offline. But yeah, we'd love to have you out sometime. Maybe even do some kind of joint event or something. Have a bunch of people out here.
Oh, that would be awesome. I just recently had an event with East Texas Aquaponics where we went over and they have their tour. We were invited just to come hang out and shoot the bull with the people that are there. And oh wow, it was awesome. Some of the people came in were just looking, trying to see if they might be interested in aquaponics, and some were there because they were interested. And for those 5 or 6 people, they have just exploded into aquaponics recently since that meetup. And so we're looking to go anywhere we can to hook up with folks that might be on the shelf thinking, should I or should I not, and kind of help them get over the level and say, it's not that hard to do. So let's go for it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's too much fun and very rewarding. I love it.
It was a blast. And I don't care what you grow. If you're doing aquaponics, it's going to be better. And of course, there's different ways in aquaponics to grow stuff. like the dual root zone that you talk about, Steve, and the rest of us, what we do. But it's great all the way around.
Oh yeah. And different methods are different, grow different crops better. If I'm doing lettuce, I don't need dual root zone. If I'm doing root crops, I might want to do a wicking bed. It just depends on what it is I'm trying to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. The wicking beds is something we looked at earlier this year. We tried to get going with that, and because of everything else going on, we didn't get the opportunity to go with it. We really need to get on that. There's so many people that are interested in it because of root crops, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, you name it. Any tubers, you can't really do that in aquaponics. You need a wicking bed that you can use your aquaponic water for, and that's a big deal.
The easiest quick conversion is if you just go out and get a smart pot or one of the cloth pots and put your soil in that, and just drop it right in your media bed at the very top of the flood layer, and then you can actually convert, your media beds or even just a small pocket of your media bed into a wicking bed. And then you can put, your garlic or your onion or your ginger or your turmeric or whatever, or carrots, or beets or, whatever it is you want to grow.
That's fine for a small crop, but if you're
Oh
looking
yeah.
huge, I'm not sure that would work.
Oh no, no, no. If you're doing commercial scale, you gotta do dedicate whole beds. Actually, if you guys are interested, there's a bunch of really cool, larger wicking beds down at Ouroboros. I know I have a video up on my YouTube. If anyone's interested to see maybe a commercial scale.
I'd be interested in seeing it, and I'll darn sure talk to Ken about that shortly. Tomorrow, or the next day.
Sure, yeah. There's it's a couple different designs for that. So
And I don't. I'll be honest. I'm not sure how much you have to do with Ouroboros Farms as far as design or upkeep or anything like that. I've never heard one way or the other. So bring me
oh,
up to speed.
I just teach there, and then Ken and I are both involved in a separate company. So
You going to tell us that separate company, or do I have to advertise that myself?
oh no, no. Ken and I are both part owners of Purity Medicinals, which is a much larger aquaponics company that we'll have a lot more announcements for here in the next 1 to 3 months here on what we're doing and where our new facilities will be next year. So
All right. Back in December of 2016, there was a story that came out in the ASC magazine, and it was about me actually. It was called Road to Aquaponics, I believe, and it was written by my daughter, my oldest daughter, only daughter. But it had to do with sickness that I got some years ago. Nearly killed me. I ended up in the hospital for over a week, and they sent me home because I demanded to be sent home because I was sure I was going to die, and so I had to go home. And it ended up being sarcoidosis, and I've asked about that a couple times tonight, and trying to see if anybody knew anything. My curiosity is there anything out there from your side that could help with it? Because everywhere I go, I get no help. I can get a patch or a band-aid, but there's no help out there. This disease attacks every organ in your body from the skin down, and there's no help for it other than prednisone or anti-rejection drugs. They want us to take drugs that if you had a heart transplant or lung transplant, that's what you take those drugs for. But it's so devastating on the body that I refuse to take them.
you'd probably want something in heavy in THCV and CBG. It looks like it's an inflammatory thing, but we're actually working on a product that would be very specifically geared towards this. That it's one of the ones that we haven't brought to market or shown off publicly that Tommy and I have kind of behind the scenes that I'm not going to tell you more about at the moment, but I can definitely tell you that we have one that's aimed specifically towards inflammation that we're kind of in the beta testing phase of right now, where we're doing a certain isolation groups, and a couple of other tricks to help with inflammation. And it's definitely something that we can talk about offline. But yeah, that
Roger,
would definitely.
there's something I would like to say online, just for also for people out there. You I'm not credentialed in any way, shape, or form, but I actually come from a family with a lot of paper on the wall, medical researchers, on and on, that kind of stuff. And the truth is, there is more peer-reviewed research on green tea than there is on cannabis. And when you ask very specific questions like you're asking, I understand your need, and I hear a lot. The thinking I try to advocate for is being honest that we really don't have a lot of answers in the research to responsibly respond to your request. But what we can do as a community is say, hey, if you're a person who has X, Y, or Z condition, and you've decided you want to experiment with some cannabis or a number of other medicinal herbs, are the people gathered here the kind of people that are going to grow you the very best source material you can to run that experiment? I'm sorry we don't have like exact answers for conditions or whatever, but I do know there are people here that if you want to try different stuff, make good medicine, and are really, really dedicated to the purity of it and the understanding of it. Whether or not it works, can't say a thing about that. Wish I had the research to show you. Really would love that. But sorry I don't have that. But yeah, people here do have some good stuff if you do want to try anything.
No, it's okay that you don't have the actual research. Any idea? And I don't really ask for myself. I ask for the other people I deal with, because I'm in a couple of groups that are for sarcoidosis specifically, and there's so many people out there suffering. They have it so much worse than I do, and I'd love to help them. I ain't trying to make profit off this. I'm just trying to help some folks. So if something ever comes up that could be tried, that you think might point that direction to help,
I
I'd
deal
be
with
all over
a
it.
lot of pain, so I can only tell you anecdotally. It's not data; it's just my story. I'm missing 7 discs in my spine. I deal with a lot of pain. Something else, and nerve pain. I have neuropathy things from my spinal stuff and yakety schmackety, and had some pre-diabetic stuff. So I'm an old fart. You get it. I got a list. One of the things I found that just as a general tonic has been helping me tremendously is something called kratom. And you can get it in capsules, and like better than opiates, by many fold over, that you can find relief. Not 100% like an opiate, but you can find relief without all the stupid, and you can still poop.
I know what you're talking about. The drug the drug companies are fighting it hard, to the point people are going to jail over that. It's ridiculous. Here in Texas, they're going to jail.
They've been trying to push that.
Is that
but
true? I haven't heard of anything like
Yeah.
that.
I've heard
I
of
know
anyone
they
getting
made an
arrested,
attempt to really out it. The DEA did.
but it failed.
Sometime within the exactly, but it didn't go through.
Well, the biggest issue is it helps for opioid addiction, and that's the biggest bullshit. These piece of shit pharmaceutical companies want to keep everyone on these highly addictive drugs, and kratom actually helps people get off of opioids, and that's the reason why they're threatened by it. It's bullshit.
Legal or not, you're going to want to keep it in your quiver, because someday life catches up with you enough where you need something pretty stout. And I've been finding, as somebody like who was in bed over 20 hours a day, I spent a year and a half on my walker and stuff. I can walk around and everything now. You will not pry that kratom out of my cold dead fingers.
I agree with you, Tommy. And it's absolutely wrong. It's hateful that people wanting to make money will hold back something like that, or any other, not necessarily a cure, but an actual help for folks that
they
need
do
it.
this cannabis on a daily basis.
It's not surprising, though, and that's
They
that's
do.
what that's
They
the
do.
bad part is it's not surprising.
This is our space. Yeah, we can deal with this.
They do with everything.
And just remember, just because it moves into what we like to refer to as less than legal doesn't mean that people shouldn't stop using it.
We're still going to help them.
Exactly.
I remember a time here in the United States when alcohol was illegal, and right now cannabis is still, for the most part, illegal. Some places it's okay, but federally, cannabis is illegal, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And if we keep on going the way we're going, even religion, if it's the wrong one, is going to be illegal. I didn't just say that.
No, it's fine. We've seen radical, social groups in the past, become different things. You look at the backlash against the Nazi movements in the United States right now, and rightfully so. So
Yeah.
nobody likes
They
Nazis,
don't even want to be shot and doom anymore. What's wrong with them?
right? Nobody likes Nazis, so,
Nazis!
right? Fuck Nazis.
Well, no, that depends on who you ask. There are certain people out there that like Nazis, but the people that are from
They don't
Germany don't like Nazis.
Right?
The people from Europe don't like Nazis. People from America don't like Nazis. But for some reason, there's a couple of people out there, and somehow we elected one of them. That I didn't say
Right?
that.
No, we did. We did.
They need to smoke this, and they'll give up their Nazi thing.
Right? That's the thing. We all just get a bong?
One love, right there.
Exactly.
I don't care if you smoke it, drink it, shoot it up.
Take all the guys at the
Whatever.
UN. Take all the guys at the UN. We need what is it? How many countries are there? 210. So we need 210 dab rigs.
Just like terpenes, 210.
We will solve this shit real quick.
Every country's a different terpene.
Right? How many people are in Israel and Palestine? Let's get them each a bong. We can solve this. We have all these big conflicts. I think we can solve this. Everyone just needs to be a little more.
I think we invent most of the conflicts. I do. I think we do it because it makes money. I think if you may see a small conflict and we find a way to make it bigger, and that makes us money. If you're in the industrial complex or weapons or whatever, I think war makes money. If I'm wrong, slap me.
No, it does. But and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to push for the cannabis stuff. The biggest thing that we can do is help deprogram some of the bullshit our governments ended up doing to some of the veterans and everything else that's been out there, and put their life on the line, and they get all jacked up because of our government. So we can bring them back, give them good cannabis stuff to help them with their PTSD, to deprogram them and help undo the bullshit that we've caused and the stress we've caused to these poor veterans. So it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, the veterans are a big deal to me, an extreme deal. And if you watch our group very often, you'll see we'll have a veteran that'll have an issue, and we just kind of step up and take care of it. And we do ask people for help with that because sometimes it's pretty expensive, but every time we end up spending more money. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I'm happy to do it because without them, without their past, without the people before them, we wouldn't have the freedom we do to make the money or do what we do on YouTube like we're doing right now. So when they need help, we're always there.
Yep. I know I do a bunch of volunteer work. In fact, I just saw the head guy from Sean from Read for Warriors the other day down in San Diego. So, well, I'm sorry, we were supposed to meet him. We weren't gonna get a chance to meet him, but we were just talking to him the other day. We've actually, Tommy and I have done a couple of different events with him last year. So, but we did get a chance to talk to him. I'm sure we'll get him on the show again. We're looking to do. He's got a different project going on down in Southern California. We're looking to help him get online. So that's one of the. So we'll have more on that later. Anyways, it's getting a little bit late. It's hitting about 9 o'clock, so we're going to wrap things up. Does anyone have anything else last minute to say before we switch end the show for the evening?
Yeah, it's a little after 11 for me. Just saying.
Yep, no, we're wrapping things up. So
that's why I don't come on so often, because it's so late.
What how do people find you there, Brain Grow?
Make sure you're following me on Instagram these days because that's really the only thing I'm consistently posting on. I did post something else on YouTube maybe 3-4 weeks ago, but I haven't posted anything since. And I need to get around to
Okay.
that. But follow both my YouTube channel, which is Brain Grow, and my Instagram, which is brain_grow. And that is BRAYNEGRO, just to clarify for everybody.
Sure. Awesome. Thanks a lot. And then be sure to check out Marty. He's AP Meds. And thanks again to True Terpenes for coming on the show. Roger, why don't you tell people how to find you for those of the people who joined late?
You can find us at trueacaponics.com or on Facebook. Just search True Aquaponics. In fact, on Google, just type in True Aquaponics. We will pop up. You can catch us everywhere you want to look.
Thanks a lot. What about you, Tommy? How do people find you and what you've been up to?
Well, golly, I've been hiding, as you know, because have a lot of things on my to-do list. But occasionally I pop some stuff up on my YouTube channel, which is Old Fart Grows. Haven't been doing much there because I've been making some experiments.
We've been working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the things I've been doing, I actually haven't been able to post because of the reasons. But hope to be sharing a lot more soon. But yeah, I hang out here sometimes. We posted a couple things from Vegas or whatever. I just said hi to everybody. But yeah, that's where it is. Old Fart Grows.
Tommy, you scare me.
And you guys can find me at puritymedicinals.com or at potentponics.com, potentponics at Gmail, or potentponics on YouTube, or potentponics on SoundCloud. If you guys are looking to listen to just the audio version of this. So,
and you sound impotent.
Everyone for listening.
Again, impotent. That's hilarious.
Impotent Ponics there.
And we'll be back next week. I have a bunch of really awesome guests lined up for the next month or two, including Jorge Cervantes. So be sure you don't miss it. And we're gonna again just keep coming in with really cool guests. I think we have Vapor Slide on next week. In fact, I don't know if Tommy wants to show one of those real quick.
I'm just happy to see George coming in. That's hilarious. I mean, it's great. Not hilarious. It's great.
Perfect. Like a Sliznikoff rocket right there. It's perfect.
Yeah. So that little, well, we'll talk about next episode, but it's a vaporizer you can put in your dab rig as well. It's pretty cool. So, all right. I will definitely.
Is he drinking rum with his vaporizer?
No. It's that thing you can put in the dab rig. Well, it works so nice.
What the hell? He's drinking rum with his vaporizer. Hey Tommy,
Anyways,
we gotta have some spice rum together sometime. You know?
Oh, little saving spice is always good.
Spice is good. Trust me.
We'll see you guys next week and possibly a second guest. Not entirely sure yet. So thanks a lot.
Hey Steve, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
See y'all later.
Thanks a lot. Take care, everyone.